All right, folks, it's been an intense week. A lot of bad news in the world. It's a very emotionally intense situation, what's going on at the Day X hearings. And so we know we've been hitting you hard with a lot of downer content recently. And so we thought, let's lighten the mood by going to one of the funniest Morning Joe segments in recent memory, where they say that because the Republicans are holding up Ukraine money, they have fallen to communism. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Republicans are now soft on communism, according to Joe Scarborough and MSNBC. Let's take a look.
And the signals that we send are frightening. At the beginning of our support for Ukraine, Mika, there were people on the far left that would mock and ridicule the argument that China was watching. Mm-hmm. That if we didn't support Russia, if we didn't push back on Russia, if we didn't support Ukraine, that not only would Putin get that message and keep going into Ukraine and going to the Balkan states, but Xi would get the message and he would go into Taiwan. He wants to go into Taiwan. And if America lost its will to support people fighting for their own freedom.
Yeah.
There were people on the far left who didn't want to start World Wars III and IV at the same time. There were people on the far left who were a little hesitant to saber rattle with two nuclear armed powers at the same time. Like, the framing of this as if we are the unreasonable ones for not following you idiots into what? War 85 that you've advocated for in your 55 years on Earth, or however the fuck old this guy is. Like, yeah, we're the ones being unreasonable. We're the ones on the fringe because we didn't go along with this.
All right, Michelle Wolf's line about them is still my favorite description. It's like a Me Too that worked out.
Yeah, it's a Me Too that worked out. Yeah.
So exactly. when you watch these two, like they're doing a service. It's often been said that when there's bipartisan agreement, that's really when you have to worry.
Exactly.
They never agree on anything good. So theoretically, this show is kind of supposed to have a breaking points or the Hill thing going on, right? It's supposed to be a Robbie Bree kind of thing, right? Where she's supposed to be, well, you know, her father was a Democrat, worked for Carter, you know, she's.
I think pre-Trump it had that kind of dynamics, and she was still marginally liberal, and he was, you know, a center-right conservative. Although he really wasn't a center-right conservative, he was pretty hard right. He was part of the Gingrich Revolution.
Which
but
by
now
then,
in Trump they're the same.
By then was center-right.
Right.
By that time, but you watch these two now, and it really shows you that there is an elite establishment opinion that it's not Democrat or Republican or right or left. They are the best representation of what the people who really rule you want you to believe.
Right. Yes, exactly. And they've said that, right? One of Mika's best quotes, most notable quotes, is something like, you know, they're trying to tell people what to think or how to think, and that's our job, right? That was the thing she actually let slip on air, right? Yes. So, yeah, that's not even an exaggeration. Okay, let's go back to the video.
The message would be sent. The message that she is getting right now from little Mike Johnson and Donald Trump, it's just devastating. And the message is this: Republicans, who for the past 50 years have been the main force to push back hard on communism.
Okay, all right. Hold on. I got to pause this a second, because before we get into this, where it gets even more crazy, I wanted to pause it at the word devastating. Their message to Xi is devastating. Devastating how? Devastating, in my view, is starting a war over Taiwan. That would be devastating, in my view.
Right.
How exactly is what they're saying devastating? How is this policy of appeasement, as you would frame it, devastating? Like, what you're advocating for is devastating. How you could come on here and say this? You have got 500,000 casualties in Ukraine already, in a war that is lost and over. And this piece that they're doing is part of an overall media push to try and get this funding through. to see it through even further. To what end? We all know to what end. What, you just have a fucking bloodlust to get 50, 100,000 more people killed before we finally reach a deal? Like, devastating how?
Well, and when you look at people who are still propagandized into believing that we are the good guys on the world stage, even as the evidence becomes, it becomes harder and harder to forgive that level of ignorance, because the evidence is so clear. Like, what are you to make of it that every other member country voting on a ceasefire was for it, with the exception of our lapdog England, which even they were not willing to vote against it.
Russia and China both voted for a ceasefire in Gaza.
Right.
I don't know if you idiots knew that.
So how do you continue to believe this framing, which is your classic American framing? We are the good guys. We are acting on the world stage in the good, and all opposition to us is coming from shadowy people with bad motives, people who are evil, and you're expected never to look beyond that. They're backward, they're primitive, their governmental systems are not
the communists,
as we
the
are.
Republicans.
Well, this is where Morning Joe is a good measure of how desperate elites are becoming as their ability to manage the narrative slips away. Because when you can go on TV and start talking about how the Republicans have given in to communism, come on. That is just, you have to be so confident that you could basically tell your audience absolutely anything.
Yeah,
without
of course.
them ever questioning what you're saying, to say something like that.
Yep. All right, let's get to it.
Trump, it's just devastating. And the message is this: Republicans, who for the past 50 years have been the main force to push back hard on communism, they've surrendered to the communists. They've surrendered. Mike Johnson surrendered to the communists, to the ex-communists, to the wannabe communists. Mike Johnson surrendered. Donald Trump surrendered a long time ago to Vladimir Putin. Surrendered to Xi a long time ago. He has nothing but praise for Xi, for Kim Jong-un, these communist leaders, Mika. And that is a message that Xi is receiving loud and clear, that it's not just Donald Trump now. It is the Republican Party. Once the bulwark against communist aggression, it is the Republican Party, Ronald Reagan's old party, that is now collapsed.
It's completely gone, and this is a terrifying inflection point.
It is.
And for anybody who doesn't take it seriously or think the election doesn't matter or says, oh, he's not serious, you're out of your mind. At this point, you have to look at what's happening. You also, I mean, if you read the judge's judgment in the civil fraud trial, it talks about Trump's behavior not just being bad, not just being impossible to stop. The
civil fraud trial with no plaintiff except the activist attorney general of New York, who is delusional enough to think she's going to be the governor someday. The civil fraud trial, this is dangerous, this is horrible, think about what you're doing, think about, well, like, all of what's happening in the world. Look around the world. You have 30,000 dead in Gaza. You have 500,000 dead and injured in Ukraine, thanks to people who think like you fucking imbeciles. And we're supposed to think of the consequences of not following us further down this road. Because think of Donald Trump's behavior in the courtroom on a civil fraud trial with no plaintiff. I mean, how deluded and stupid do you have to be to watch this?
Things are going so well.
Yeah.
We don't want to change course now, people.
Yeah. Think about what you're doing. Think of how dangerous this is.
The bank testified on Trump's behalf.
Yes.
In the trial that they're talking about.
Yes, the bank said it all worked out fine. We'd love to do it again. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Her cat was named Vagina.
Matter or says, oh, he's not serious. You're out of your mind. At this point, you have to look at what's happening. You also, I mean,
you're delusional.
If you read the judge's judgment in the civil fraud trial, it talks about Trump's behavior not just being bad, not just being impossible to stop, being pathological. And so you have to ask the question, what is going on here?
Pathological is holding up every other government initiative, including the evil ones, including funding to Israel. Pathological is going all in for another $60 billion to Ukraine, the only effect of which will be to get tens of thousands of more people killed for no reason. That's pathological.
I sent this over to you. There was just another article about the situation with the Ukraine military. And Zelensky's trying to introduce a plan to recruit, I don't know, like 500,000 more people or something. Who are they going to be? Like, where are they getting these people from? Do they have a cloning vat? Where are they? Because the frontline average age, which it must have gone up by now. This is like 2 months ago. It was reported as 42. So where are they going to get these people from? Who are these? Were they graduating high school students? Where are you getting 500,000 more people from?
Yeah. No, just extraordinary.
He's absolutely doing something for himself or for Putin. It is the opposite of patriotism and opposite of dedication to this country.
Wow. But yeah, that's really one for the time capsule. That's even more cringe than I remember. I watched it before the show just to catch up, and I was like, man, watching it again? Yeah, that's even worse than I remember.
Well, and clearly, when you consider the alternative, we must support Trump's opponent.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Yeah, right.
Now that's a guy who has all of his shit together.
Yeah. Wow. Just unbelievable.
That was a whole mess of crazy. That was just that is Stanley Tucci in the Hunger Games. Oh, the girl on fire! Like it's just such propaganda with no attempt to in any way make it credible anymore. Which I guess fair enough. They know their audience. Anyone who hasn't figured out at this point that this is bullshit, yes, you can tell them anything.
Please clap.